It's Will Shannon, and I want to talk to you today about a few things. In fact, I want to talk to you about what I believe are the four most important concepts in your life, or the four most important forces that make up your life, or perhaps what I should say, the four most important contexts that you could master in your life. Now, the first thing that I truly believe that you need to master is your health, which is why I've devoted so much of my life to the study of that. I've spent my whole adult life working out how people can get over incurable illness. I'm talking the most extreme circumstances you can imagine. How people can have more energy, vitality, get over colds and influenza and things like that just a little bit quicker. So I really believe that's the most important context, bar none. And the example that always comes to mind for myself, and I don't tell other people this because it's probably not always relevant to talk about, but you look at someone like Christopher Reeve. I don't know if you know who he is or was. He's now deceased, but this man was Superman. This man had the world at his feet. This man was loved by millions of people, had more money than you could imagine, fame throughout the world, respected, very good-looking man by society standards, and yet one moment shifted it all. He fell off a horse. He shattered what we call the C1 and the C2 vertebrae, the first two vertebrae in the neck. And in that moment, he lost the connection between his head and his spinal cord. What do you do in a moment like that? Well, most people give up and die. But he didn't. He was laying in hospital and he was holding his wife's hand, and he turned to his wife and said, "Look, I've got to check out. I'm going to commit suicide. I don't think I can cope with this." And his wife turned to him and his wife said, "Look," she said, "you can do whatever you want." And she said, "I'll always love you. I'll always support you. I'll always be here for you through anything that you need." But she said, "Look, I'm never going to leave your side no matter what happens." And for him to experience a love that deep, in that moment he had to make a decision. And the decision that he decided to make was to stick around, to stay, that there's more to live for. Which meant he'd lost the most important skill in life, or I believe the most important thing you could have, which meant he had to go to step two, which was to be able to control his emotions, which is what I want to talk to you a little bit about today, very briefly, and then I'll check off this tape, and you can go do something else. But there's also a third and fourth context which I think is really important that people need to master, that we need to talk about at some point. The third point is your intimate relationship. And your intimate relationship, there's 7,000 million people on the planet currently, and our population is just exploding. So at some point, overpopulation is one of the biggest challenges that we face as a race right now. But out of all those people, the decision about who you spend time with is probably one of the most important decisions you'll ever make. But the decision about who is the most important out of those 7,000 million completely controls your life and your destination in life. So that's an incredibly important skill to master. Now, there's two aspects to that which we'll talk about another time. One is selection, because very often when that chemistry kicks in, you don't stop and think, is this the best person for me, or could this be the best possible person I can spend the rest of my life with? But secondly, there's certain principles around the world that couples do that have been together 30, 40, 50, 60, 65 years that anyone can do that can take them somewhere from an average relationship to an outstanding relationship or a great relationship. And that's not really the area that I want to take on or specialize in, even though I've got skills and things in those fields and training. The fourth thing that I truly believe that you need to master is your ability to give back, your ability to contribute, your profession, your trade. You really need to be able to be dropped into any city on earth and be able to earn an income because you've got something to give out. And there's certain governments in the world, we're very lucky in the country of Australia, that people can do nothing and the government will support you. And they'll support you for a while, but they'll also support you long term as well, because we've created a system where people can be dependent on the government for years, if not decades, sometimes with being able to give very little back. So I think the thing that I want to talk to you about today is emotions, and they're really, really important thing to master. So obviously at some point I want to go through with you and I want you to be an expert in your health. I want if I've got a problem, I can get over it. How do I have enough energy? How do I lose weight quickly and healthy? How do I feel the way I want to feel? How can I attract the sort of people into my life that I want and be happy? And also then, how can I derive an income and give something back and be passionate? And I really believe that if those 4 areas of your life are filled, you have a fairly rich life. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to believe spiritually or what to take on in that area. And I think then obviously then there's the aspect of parenting and children, which hopefully if we embody certain things, maybe there's a relationship there. I'm not a natural parent at this point, I've been a step parent, but I'm not here to try and take on every context of your life, even though I truly think that they're all very, very important. But the thing that I want to talk to you today a little bit about is emotions. And there's really 2 aspects that shape your emotion, alright? Your body and your mind. It's as simple as that. I want to distill it into the easiest principles that you could possibly use. So, the body, psychologically, we treat as being much more important than the mind in terms of how you feel. Most therapists, most helping professionals, most people from around the world focus on the mind, and we tend to forget about the body. And the body is obviously incredibly important, but anatomically, or the study of anatomy, which is a big fancy word from Latin meaning the study of the human body, we call the human body the study of that, physiology. So we have a saying in psychology, we call it physiology first. And what that means is, if you're going to pick one thing to look after out of the mind and the body, look after the body first. Alright, now, obviously in terms of how healthy you are, how you're breathing, things like that, all this plays a component to go into how you feel. But the most important thing you can take control of is your body, your respiration, your breathing, your posture, how the angles of your body are sitting. It makes a big difference in you biochemically, believe it or not. You've got, I can't remember off the top of my head, but we've got so many muscles in our face, and every single change in one of those muscles makes a corresponding difference in how we feel emotionally. If you're walking around like this all day, you're not going to feel that great about yourself. And also, I have to tell you that, there's studies all around the world that what micro gestures mean. If you're disgusted, you're going to do something with your face. If you're happy, you're going to do something else. If you're fearful or surprised, you're going to do something with your body and something with your face. It's hardwired. The body and the mind are connected. So if you want to shift how you feel, the first thing to shift is to shift your body. Now, obviously second, then you've got the mind, which is in terms of what we think about. Now, people, back to famous philosophers, have debated how do people think, what quantifies thinking. But out of psychology since the 70s, we know that basically thinking is nothing more than the process of using your senses on the inside. We call that internal representation or internal representation. So what that basically means in a nutshell is that we represent the 5 senses in our body, in our nervous system, and we get a feeling about them. And it's sometimes as simple as people have something horrific happen to them, and we relive it over and over and over again in our mind, because if something happens in our life with enough emotion, that imprints. Emotion will imprint into the human nervous system. The deeper, the stronger the emotion, the longer it's going to stay for, and the more likely those memories that are fire automatically. If you meet someone and there's a spark, there's an emotion, that will tend to fire automatically. Or if a truck comes crashing through your window, you'll tend to feel that. We call that in psychology significant emotional events, or SEE, C's for short. Now, out of those significant emotional events, we tend to make key decisions, don't we? No, we tend to make decisions out of that, and a lot of the time they're unconscious, and a lot of these things unconsciously are trying to protect us. And because we want to protect ourselves from ever feeling that pain again, we link up things in our head that aren't true. We go through a divorce, or the loss of a spouse, or something that is incredibly painful, and unconsciously we try and link up how to protect ourselves from ever having to go through that again. And often we link up things like women are bad, or men are bad, or something that is completely disempowering to us, and we can't get over that. But there's been new research from around the world that we accept now that every time you access a memory, you change that memory, because the past is gone. The only reality is in the human mind, and you've got the ability to alter anything that's happened to you, make a shift in how you feel. So that's some of the gifts that I want to give you over the next coming sessions. But in terms of emotions, I'd like to distill it into two simple ways to think about it. And I want you to think about emotions in terms of two contexts. One, short term, and secondly, long term. Now, controlling your emotions short term, we call that your state. Now, there's two things that make up your state, all right? Your body and your mind, your physiology and your attention. Long term, it's your model of the world. Now, your model of the world has to do with things like your beliefs, your values, your decisions, what's happened to you. All these things go in to play a part in terms of shaping you. Now, I'll take that on another time in terms of what affects you long term. This is your upbringing, what's happened, pain, loss, the hand that life has dealt you, and how you've had to react to that to be who you are. And we all have to survive, and we're all trying to get out of pain and into pleasure. So in order to do that, we all make certain responses in our nervous system so we can cope. And which means a lot of who you are today is really unconsciously driven. And we'll take that on another time. But right now, I'd like to deal with the short-term aspect. I'd like you to just remember two things. You've got two things that you're in control of to change how you feel in the moment. I'm not necessarily talking long-term, although we'll control that too, but just in the moment. Right? The first thing is your body. Right? And the second thing is your mind. So if someone's depressed, or someone's down, or someone's feeling a negative emotion, you know where their body is. You know where their shoulders are. You know how they're breathing. You know the kind of look that they have on their face. You know kind of the way they're talking. It's very different than when someone's up and full of energy, or looking at you with a look in the eye full of love, or whatever that happens to be. So the first thing that you can take control of is